You really want to put your name on this arrest, Officer Whitman? Maya Reynolds asked, her voice so calm that it seemed almost out of place beneath the cold fluorescent lights of the Riverton Police Department parking garage. Officer Derek Whitman stared at her from across the hood of her dark gray sedan, one hand resting beside a small, clear evidence bag he claimed had just been found inside the vehicle. A faint smile pulled at the corner of his mouth. He had been waiting for fear, confusion, maybe even desperation. Instead, the black woman standing before him simply watched. My name goes on every arrest I make, Derek replied, especially when somebody thinks the rules don't apply to them. Maya glanced at the bag, then at the identification number printed across its label. Her expression barely changed. Then make sure you remember that number. Derek gave a short laugh. You planning to teach me police procedure now? Maya didn't answer. Somewhere above them, an exhaust fan hummed against the concrete ceiling. A patrol car rolled past the entrance, its tires whispering across pavement still damp from an early morning rain. 20 feet away, Officer Ethan Miller stood beside another cruiser pretending to check something on his tablet, though his eyes kept drifting toward the confrontation. Something about it felt wrong. Derek had stopped Maya less than 15 minutes earlier after seeing her walking through the employee parking area. She had explained that she had business inside the station. She had shown identification. She had answered every question without raising her voice. But Derek had already decided that something about her presence didn't fit. He searched the car. Nothing. He checked the trunk. Nothing. He asked the same questions again, only louder. Still nothing. Then, after circling the driver's side door, he suddenly announced that he had discovered evidence connected to an open property case. Maya had watched the entire sequence through the reflection in the sedan's window. She had also noticed something else. Derek's body camera wasn't recording. Turn around, he said. Maya remained still for one extra second. Not defiant. Not frightened. Just observant. Then she complied. The handcuffs clicked shut around her wrists, the metallic sound carrying farther through the garage than Derek expected. Ethan looked up. Maya lowered her eyes toward Derek's uniform. Badge number. Nameplate. Radio channel. Every detail seemed to settle quietly into her memory. Derek leaned closer, satisfied with himself. People come in here all the time thinking they can talk their way out of trouble. Maya looked over her shoulder. I'm not trying to talk my way out of anything. That answer bothered him more than an argument would have. Good, he said. Then this should be simple. He picked up the evidence bag and started toward the station entrance. Maya followed, composed, her footsteps measured against the concrete. Derek believed he had control of the situation. He believed the report he was about to write would become the official version of what happened. He believed the woman behind him was about to spend the morning trying to convince strangers that she hadn't done anything wrong. What he did not know was that Maya Reynolds understood evidence logs better than most officers in that building. She understood chain of custody, body camera policy, search documentation, and exactly how many cameras covered the garage. She also knew that the evidence number Derek had just claimed to discover belonged somewhere else. She had seen enough. At the doorway, Derek swiped his access card and looked back at her with the confidence of a man who thought the building belonged to people like him. Maya stepped inside and quietly asked, Officer Whitman, did you personally log that evidence under your badge number? He stopped for half a second. Yeah. What? Maya met his eyes. No reason. Then she walked past him into the station. Derek smiled, unaware that in just a few hours, every officer in that building would learn exactly who the woman in handcuffs was, and the name he had so proudly attached to this arrest would become the one detail he wished he could erase. 3 hours earlier, Maya Reynolds had crossed into Riverton beneath a pale morning sky, driving past brick storefronts, quiet neighborhoods, and the old courthouse tower that rose above downtown like a reminder of everything the city claimed to stand for. She had arrived one day before her official introduction by choice. No ceremony, no uniform, no escort from headquarters. Just a dark gray sedan, a leather shoulder bag, and a sealed envelope from the city manager resting on the passenger seat. For nearly 20 years, Maya had learned that the clearest view of an organization often came before people knew they were being observed. She had served in patrol, investigations, community relations, and command. She had watched good officers protect strangers with patience and restraint, and she had watched bad habits survive because decent people were too tired, too cautious, or too comfortable to challenge them. Riverton had not recruited her because everything was working. The department had spent months under pressure from residents, city leaders, and its own internal review process. Complaints had accumulated. Trust had weakened. Several reports described stops that escalated without clear cause, searches that were difficult to explain, and evidence records that raised uncomfortable questions. Maya had read every page she was authorized to see before accepting the position. She had also noticed one name appearing more than once. Derek Whitman. She did not know enough yet to judge him. A complaint was not a conviction. An allegation was not proof. Maya believed that deeply. It was one reason she had insisted on arriving quietly. She wanted facts before conclusions. At 7:20 that morning, her phone rang through the car speakers. Deputy Chief Robert Hayes spoke with the tired warmth of someone who had spent weeks preparing for change. "You are really doing this without telling anyone you are here?" he asked. Maya smiled slightly. That was the agreement. The command staff knows. Nobody below that level has been shown your photograph yet. Good. Hayes paused. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. The department will finally know. Maya looked through the windshield as the police station came into view 2 blocks ahead. Tomorrow is for introductions. Today is for listening. She parked at a small coffee shop across from a public park and spent nearly an hour walking the surrounding blocks. She spoke briefly with a crossing guard, listened to 2 residents discussing parking enforcement, and watched patrol units move through morning traffic. Nothing dramatic happened. That was exactly what she wanted. Maya had never trusted leaders who appeared only when cameras were present. By 9:30, she returned to her sedan and drove toward the employee side of the Riverton Police Department, where Hayes had told her to use a temporary access entrance. The concrete parking structure was cool and dim compared with the bright street outside. She parked near a row of unmarked vehicles, stepped out, and adjusted the strap of her bag. Inside it was her identification, appointment paperwork, and the new captain's badge she had not yet worn. She touched the edge of the small presentation box for a moment, then closed the bag. Rank could wait. She wanted to enter the building as Maya Reynolds before anyone treated her as Captain Reynolds. Across the garage, a patrol vehicle turned the corner and slowed. Behind the wheel, Derek Whitman looked toward her, then toward the unmarked cars, then back at her again. His expression changed almost immediately. Maya noticed. She had seen that look before, the kind that formed a conclusion before a question was ever asked. The cruiser stopped 20 feet away. Derek stepped out and shut the door behind him. "Ma'am," he called. Maya turned calmly. "Can I help you, officer?" He studied her as if the answer had already disappointed him. "That depends. What are you doing in this parking area?" Maya glanced once toward the station entrance, then back at him. She could have ended the encounter with 2 words and a badge. Instead, she answered evenly. "I have business inside." Derek took another step closer. "What kind of business?" Maya held his gaze. Somewhere above them, a security camera quietly recorded the moment everything began. Derek Whitman let the silence linger as if he expected Maya to become nervous under his stare. She did not. "I asked what kind of business," he repeated. Maya glanced toward his nameplate, then back to his face. "Department business." The answer was simple, but Derek heard it as resistance. For 14 years, he had worked the streets of Riverton, long enough to know nearly every patrol officer, dispatcher, clerk, and supervisor by sight. In his mind, familiarity had become ownership. He knew which doors required access cards, which supervisors preferred quick reports, and which questions rarely received a second look. The employee garage was part of that territory, and Maya Reynolds was someone he did not recognize. That alone seemed enough for him. "Do you work here?" he asked. "I have an appointment inside." That was not my question. Maya watched him carefully. His voice remained controlled, but his assumptions were becoming visible. She had spent years interviewing witnesses and reviewing officers under pressure. People revealed themselves in small choices: what they asked first, what they ignored, what they decided before evidence appeared. Derek reached for his radio, then stopped. Identification. Maya opened her bag slowly and handed him her driver's license. Her departmental credentials remained inside beside the unopened badge box. Derek studied the license longer than necessary. "Maya Reynolds," he read aloud. "Address is 2 counties over." "That is correct. So why are you in a restricted police parking area?" "I already told you." His jaw tightened. Across the garage, Ethan Miller looked up again. Ethan had worked with Derek for less than a year, but he had already learned when conversations around him were better left alone. Derek was experienced, confident, and popular with a certain group of veteran officers. He could make a room laugh. He could also make younger officers feel foolish for questioning him. Sergeant Laura Bennett understood that better than anyone. Inside the station, she was reviewing overnight reports when she noticed Derek's unit number appear on the garage access monitor. She paused. There had been complaints before. Not proven findings, not formal discipline, but enough similar concerns to make her uncomfortable. Unnecessary stops, questionable searches, reports where the written explanation seemed stronger than the original. Reason for contact. 3 complaint files had crossed Laura's desk during the previous 18 months. Each time, the matter had disappeared into administrative language, reassignment, or insufficient evidence. Each time, Laura had told herself that following procedure was enough. Maya knew none of that yet, but she knew Derek's name. It had appeared repeatedly in the briefing materials she studied before accepting the captain position, never as a conclusion, always as a question. She had promised herself she would not judge him through paperwork. Now he was standing in front of her, creating his own first impression. Derek handed back the license. "Stay here." He walked around her sedan, studying the windows and checking the license plate. Maya noticed the red indicator on his body camera was dark. "Is your camera operating, Officer Whitman?" Derek stopped. For the first time, his expression shifted. "You ask a lot of questions. I pay attention." Ethan heard that from across the garage and looked directly at Derek's chest. His own body camera was recording. Derek noticed Ethan watching and called out, "Miller, do you have somewhere you need to be?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir." He did not turn his camera off. Derek returned his attention to Maya. "I'm going to take a look inside the vehicle." Maya remained composed. "What is your legal basis for the search?" The garage seemed quieter after she asked it. Derek gave her a thin smile. "You really think you are going to tell me how to do my job?" Maya met his eyes without blinking. "No, Officer Whitman. I am giving you the opportunity to explain how you are doing it." Derek held Maya's gaze for a moment longer, then looked away as if her question had irritated him more than anything she could have said. "Step back from the vehicle," he ordered. Maya moved several feet away and stood beside a concrete support column where the overhead lights cast a pale reflection across the polished floor. Ethan remained near his cruiser, pretending to review information on his mobile data terminal while keeping the scene within view. Derek opened the driver's door and began searching with growing impatience. The center console, the glove compartment, the space beneath the seats. Nothing. He moved to the back seat and checked again. Still nothing. Maya watched without interfering. She had learned long ago that people often became careless when they expected resistance and found none. Derek glanced toward her. "You seem pretty relaxed." "Should I not be?" she asked. "Most people would be worried. Most people probably expect an officer to have a reason for searching their car." The words were quiet, but Ethan heard them. Derek did too. His face tightened. "I have plenty of reasons." Maya tilted her head slightly. "Then one of them should be easy to state." That was when Derek stopped treating the encounter like a routine check. Until that moment, he had been trying to prove his suspicion correct. Now he seemed determined to prove Maya wrong. He opened the trunk and searched through a folded jacket, a reusable grocery bag, and a small emergency kit. Nothing unusual. He closed the trunk harder than necessary, then stood still for a second. Maya noticed his eyes move toward the rear of his patrol vehicle. Ethan noticed it too. Derek walked back to his cruiser, opened the front passenger door, and leaned inside. From where Maya stood, she could not see his hands directly, but the dark window of her sedan reflected more than Derek realized. A small clear bag appeared briefly near his waist before disappearing into his palm. Maya's expression did not change. Ethan looked up. Derek crossed back toward the sedan. "I am going to check one more area," he said. He opened the rear passenger door, bent down for several seconds, then straightened with the clear bag in his hand. "Well, look at that." He held it up between 2 fingers. "Now we have a problem." Maya looked at the bag, then at Derek. "Where exactly did you find it?" "Under the rear seat." "You already checked the rear seat." Derek gave a short laugh. "Maybe I missed it the first time." "Maybe." That single word made him pause. Maya's eyes moved to the printed evidence label. A case number. A property code. A date. details most people would have ignored. She recognized the format immediately. Riverton's evidence system used a sequence she had reviewed during her command briefing. The label did not belong to something newly discovered. It had already been processed. "What is in the bag?" Maya asked. "Property connected to an open investigation." "Which investigation?" "You will find out downtown." Maya glanced toward the station door only 40 feet away. "We are already at the station." Ethan lowered his tablet slightly. Derek's frustration showed now. "You think this is funny?" "No," Maya said. "I think documentation matters." Derek stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Here is what matters. I found evidence in your vehicle. You can explain the rest later." Maya studied him with an expression that was almost sympathetic. Not because she believed him, because she understood what he had just done to himself. "Did you notify dispatch before the search?" she asked. Derek did not answer immediately. "Did you record the discovery?" Maya continued. "Did you photograph the location before removing the evidence?" Enough questions. "Did you log the evidence under your badge number?" Derek looked toward Ethan, then back at her. He seemed to realize that Miller was still standing nearby. "Yes," he said finally. "I did." Maya nodded once. "Good. Good," Derek repeated. "That is a strange reaction." Maya looked toward the security camera mounted above the garage entrance, then back to him. "Not really." For the first time, Derek followed her eyes upward. His confidence flickered, but only for a second. Then he recovered. "Turn around." Maya complied without argument. Ethan slowly set his tablet down. The sound of the handcuffs closing echoed through the garage as Derek reached for his radio. "I have one detained," he announced. "Possible stolen property recovery." Maya listened carefully to every word. Derek believed he had finally created the story he wanted. What he did not understand was that every detail he added was becoming part of a different story, one he would not control for much longer. The station doors opened with a soft electronic click, and Derek guided Maya into a hallway washed in flat fluorescent light. Phones rang somewhere beyond the front desk. Printers hummed. "Hey!" Coffee machine hissed near the break room. To everyone else, it looked like an ordinary morning inside a busy police department. To Maya, every sound seemed sharper because every detail now mattered. Derek walked half a step ahead of her, carrying the evidence bag in one hand with the confidence of someone who believed the hardest part was over. Ethan followed several yards behind. He said nothing, but his attention never left the bag. As they passed the report desk, two officers looked up. Derek gave them a knowing smile. "Found stolen property in her car," he said. "She has been asking questions ever since." One officer glanced at Maya, then back at Derek. "That's so." Maya remained silent. Derek seemed disappointed by her lack of reaction. He had expected embarrassment, maybe anger. Instead, she looked around the room as if she were studying a place she already understood. Sergeant Laura Bennett stepped out from a side office holding a folder. She stopped when she saw Derek, then noticed Maya in handcuffs. Something about the scene made her expression tighten. "What happened?" Laura asked. "Possible property case," Derek replied. "Garage stop turned into something useful." "Was your body camera running?" Laura asked. Derek paused just long enough for Maya to notice. "Battery issue." Laura looked toward Ethan. "And yours?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, Sergeant." Derek turned toward him. "You were not part of the search." "No, sir," Ethan said carefully. "But I was in the garage." Maya filed away the answer. Derek motioned toward an interview room. "We can sort this out in here." The room was small, with a metal table for chairs and a camera mounted high in one corner. Maya sat when instructed. Derek placed the evidence bag on the table between them and opened a digital report on a department tablet. "Let us make this simple," he said. "You tell me why this was in your car, and maybe we save everybody some time." Maya looked at the bag. "What time did you first see it?" Derek frowned. "I am asking the questions. You can still answer one." "I found it during the search." "Before or after you checked the rear seat the first time?" Derek stared at her. "After." "Did you photograph it before moving it?" "I already told you. I know how to handle evidence." "That was not my question." His fingers stopped over the tablet screen. Outside the room, Ethan and Laura could hear the exchange through the partially open door. Maya continued in the same, even tone. "When did you notify dispatch that you were searching my vehicle?" Derek leaned back. "Why does that matter to you?" "Because timestamps matter." "You sound like a lawyer." "No." Maya looked directly at him. "I sound like someone who understands procedure." Derek gave a quiet laugh, but it lacked the certainty he had shown in the garage. You think knowing a few policy words changes what I found? I think facts change everything. She nodded toward the evidence bag. Read the case number aloud. Derek glanced down. Why? Because you are putting it in your report. He read the number. Maya did not react, but Laura did. Standing outside, she looked down at the folder in her hand. That number felt familiar. She had seen it recently, attached to a closed property file. Ethan noticed her expression. Sergeant, he whispered. Laura did not answer. Inside the room, Maya asked one final question. Officer Whitman, are you certain that bag was never entered into department custody before today? Derek hesitated. Only for a second. But this time, everyone noticed. I am certain, he said. Maya leaned back and became completely still. Derek mistook the silence for surrender. Ethan did not. Laura did not. And Maya knew that the more Derek spoke, the less she would eventually need to say. Laura Bennett stood outside the interview room with the closed property file in her hands, staring at the case number until the digits stopped looking like coincidence. She had seen that number before. 2 weeks earlier, the evidence connected to that file had already been processed, inventoried, and marked for transfer to secure storage. There should have been no reason for any part of it to appear in Maya Reynolds' car that morning. Ethan Miller noticed Laura's face change. Sergeant, what is it? He asked quietly. Laura lowered her voice. I need you to save your body camera footage from the garage. Immediately. Do not overwrite it. Do not send it anywhere except through the official evidence system. Ethan looked toward the interview room. You think something is wrong? Laura closed the folder. I think I should have asked more questions a long time ago. Inside, Derek continued typing his report while Maya sat across from him with the same measured calm. Every few seconds, he glanced at her as if waiting for anxiety to finally appear. It never did. You understand you are making this harder on yourself by refusing to explain the evidence, he said. Maya looked toward the camera above the door. I have explained everything I know. Which is nothing. No. I said the evidence was not mine. That is different. Derek shook his head. Everybody says that. Maya studied him for a moment. Do you hear yourself when you say things like that? Derek stopped typing. What is that supposed to mean? It means you keep describing people as a category before you describe what they actually did. The room went quiet. Derek's expression hardened. Do not turn this into something it is not. Maya did not raise her voice. I am not turning it into anything. Before Derek could answer, the radio clipped to Laura's shoulder crackled outside the room. A dispatcher's voice filled the hallway. Deputy Chief Hayes, command staff is asking for confirmation. Captain Reynolds has already arrived on site. Derek's fingers froze above the tablet. Maya did not move. Ethan slowly looked toward the interview room. Laura's eyes narrowed as she repeated the message in her mind. Captain Reynolds. Derek turned his head toward the doorway. What did she say? Laura stepped into view. Dispatch said the new captain is already here. Derek gave a short, uncertain laugh. Then somebody should probably go meet her. Maya looked down at the table, hiding nothing, revealing nothing. Derek watched her for several seconds. Something about the name had reached him, but he could not place why. Reynolds, he repeated. Then he looked at Maya. That is your last name too. Maya met his eyes. It is. Derek leaned back. Common name. Sometimes. The confidence in his voice returned, but thinner now. He picked up the evidence bag and stood. We are moving this to briefing. I want witnesses when I document the recovery. Laura stepped aside, though she looked increasingly uneasy. Ethan followed at a distance as Derek escorted Maya down the hall. Officers passed them carrying folders and coffee cups, unaware that the atmosphere had changed. Near the briefing room, Maya heard hurried footsteps approaching from the administration wing. Derek heard them too. The door at the far end opened, and Deputy Chief Robert Hayes entered the hallway with 2 command staff members behind him. He was speaking quickly until he saw Maya. Then he stopped. His eyes moved from her face to the handcuffs, then to Derek, then to the evidence bag. The entire hallway seemed to lose its sound. Derek straightened. Deputy Chief, I was just bringing in a suspect from the garage. Hayes did not respond to him. He looked only at Maya. For one long second, no one moved. Then his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. Derek noticed. Laura noticed. Ethan noticed. Maya remained perfectly still. Hayes took one step forward and said her name with a tone that changed everything. Captain Reynolds? For a moment, Derek Whitman seemed unable to understand what he had heard. His eyes moved from Deputy Chief Robert Hayes to Maya Reynolds, then back again, as if the hallway itself had changed around him. "Captain," he repeated. Hayes looked at the handcuffs, then at Derek with a level expression that carried more weight than anger ever could. "Officer Whitman, remove the handcuffs from your captain." The words traveled through the hallway with absolute clarity. Ethan stopped breathing for a second. Laura lowered the folder in her hands. Two officers near the briefing room turned toward one another but said nothing. Derek stared at Maya. The confidence he had carried through the garage, the interview room, and every step between them was gone. "I did not know," he said. Maya held his gaze. "That is the problem." Derek reached for the key. His hands moved carefully now, nothing like the certainty he had shown earlier. When the cuffs came free, Maya rubbed one wrist lightly, then straightened her shoulders. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She did not use the moment to humiliate him. Instead, she looked at the clear evidence bag still in Derek's hand. "Officer Whitman, where did that evidence come from?" Derek swallowed. "I found it in your vehicle." "That was not my question." Silence returned. Hayes stepped closer. "What is going on here?" Maya turned slightly toward him. "I would like Sergeant Bennett to secure all garage surveillance footage from this morning. Officer Miller's body camera recording needs to be preserved. I also want the evidence access logs for this case number and the original property file." Derek's face changed again. "Captain, I can explain." Maya looked back at him, then explained the sequence. "I saw her in the employee garage," Derek began, then caught himself. "I saw you in the employee garage. I did not recognize you. I thought you might be somewhere you were not authorized to be." "And what facts supported that?" Derek hesitated. "You were near unmarked department vehicles." Maya waited. "So were several employees." "I did not know you were an employee. You had my identification. It did not show department employment." "Correct." Maya nodded once. "What happened next?" Derek glanced toward Hayes. Then Laura, as if searching for a safer version of the story. "I conducted a search." Maya's voice remained calm. "On what legal basis?" The hallway was so quiet that the faint hum of the ventilation system became noticeable. Derek looked down. "I believe there was reasonable suspicion." "Suspicion of what specific offense?" He did not answer immediately. Laura stepped forward. "Captain Reynolds, I need to tell you something." Maya turned. Laura opened the folder she had been holding and showed her the case number. "The evidence number on that bag appears to match a property file that was closed 2 weeks ago." Hayes looked sharply at Derek. Ethan's expression tightened. Maya did not look surprised. She had already noticed the sequence in the interview room. "Has the bag been checked against the evidence room log?" she asked. "Not yet," Laura said. "Do it now." Derek finally spoke. "This is being made to look worse than it is." Maya looked at him for a long moment. "Then the records will protect you." That answer landed harder than accusation because it left nowhere to hide. Hayes folded his arms. "Officer Whitman, until this is reviewed, you are not touching another report, another evidence item, or another vehicle connected to this incident." Derek opened his mouth, but Maya raised one hand, not in anger, only to stop the interruption. "This is not about me being your captain," she said. "If I had been a teacher, a nurse, an accountant, or someone looking for directions, the standard should have been exactly the same. You should not need to know a person's rank before deciding they deserve fairness." No one in the hallway moved. Derek looked at the evidence bag again, but now it no longer looked like proof against Maya. It looked like a question pointed directly at him. Laura turned toward the records office. Ethan reached for his camera controls. Hayes called internal affairs. And Maya stood in the center of the hallway, no longer the unknown woman Derek believed he could define, but the leader now asking the one question his badge could not answer for him. What happens when the truth is finally documented? By noon, the evidence room had become the quiet center of the department. Maya Reynolds stood beside Laura Bennett while an evidence technician pulled the digital access history for the case number printed on the clear bag. Deputy Chief Robert Hayes watched from the end of the counter, saying little. Derek Whitman had been moved to an administrative office and instructed to wait until internal affairs arrived. For the first time that morning, he was no longer controlling the sequence of events. The computer screen refreshed. Laura leaned closer. "There," she said. The record showed that the evidence had been entered into department custody 12 days earlier, signed and under a property case, then transferred to temporary storage. The item had never been released to Maya. It had never been associated with her vehicle. More troubling, the access log showed that Derek had entered the temporary storage room shortly before his shift began that morning. Maya read the timestamp twice. Was he assigned to that case? She asked. The technician shook his head. No, Captain. Hayes exhaled slowly. Then we need every access record connected to Officer Whitman for the last year. Maya turned to Laura. And every complaint involving disputed searches or evidence recovery. Laura did not move immediately. Her face carried the look of someone realizing that silence had finally collected a cost. There were 3 that I remember, she said. Possibly more. Maya looked at her. Tell me. Laura opened a cabinet and pulled out a thin folder, then another. One involved a college student stopped near a shopping center. Another involved a delivery driver whose vehicle was searched after a traffic warning. The third was a woman who filed a complaint after property was listed in a report that she said she had never seen before. Hayes frowned. What happened to the complaints? Laura hesitated. None became sustained findings. The reports were considered incomplete. Witnesses were unavailable. One recording was missing. Maya's eyes settled on her. And you believe that? Laura looked down. I believe there was not enough to prove otherwise. That is not the same answer. Laura nodded slowly. No, it is not. Across the hall, Ethan Miller was completing the upload of his body camera footage. When the recording reached the moment Derek walked back to his cruiser, Ethan paused the video. The angle was not perfect, but it captured Derek opening the passenger door, reaching inside, then returning toward Maya's sedan with one hand closed. A second security camera filled in what Ethan's view could not. The 2 recordings did not require interpretation. They required explanation. Internal Affairs arrived 20 minutes later. Maya refused to conduct the interview herself. I am involved in the incident, she told Hayes. That means someone independent handles it. That decision surprised several officers who had gathered quietly near the hallway. They expected revenge. Maya insisted on process. Derek was given representation, the records were preserved, and every step was documented. Then Ethan approached Maya with something else. Captain, there is more footage. She looked at him. From today? No. My camera automatically backed up clips from previous shifts. I found 2 stops involving Officer Whitman where the written reports do not match what I remember seeing. Laura closed her eyes briefly. Maya did not respond for several seconds. The morning had begun with one suspicious encounter. Now it was opening a door into something larger. Not a conclusion. Not yet. But a pattern worth examining. Maya looked through the glass toward the evidence room shelves, rows of sealed bags and numbered boxes waiting behind locked doors. Pull every case where his report involves recovered property, she said. Hayes nodded. How far back? Maya turned toward him. As far as the records go. By late afternoon, the department no longer had one incident to review. It had questions stretching across months, possibly years. And Derek's greatest mistake was no longer that he had underestimated Maya Reynolds. It was that, for the first time, the system around him had stopped looking away. The next morning, Riverton Police Department looked almost exactly as it had the day before. The same fluorescent lights buzzed over the hallways. The same coffee steamed beside unfinished reports. The same patrol cars waited in neat rows outside. But inside the building, something fundamental had changed. Questions that had once been buried beneath routine were now being asked out loud. Internal Affairs had secured the records connected to Derek Whitman, and several older complaints were under formal review. No one was rushing to conclusions. Maya Reynolds had insisted on that. Facts first. Process first. Accountability without spectacle. Derek remained on administrative leave while investigators examined the evidence logs, body camera footage, security recordings, and reports connected to his previous cases. Laura Bennett had submitted a statement acknowledging the moments when she had seen warning signs and chosen silence instead of asking harder questions. Ethan Miller had turned over every recording he believed might matter. For Maya, that was the beginning of change, not the end of it. At 8 o'clock sharp, officers gathered in the briefing room for the introduction that was supposed to have happened under very different circumstances. Maya stood outside the doorway for a moment, dressed in uniform now, the new captain's badge resting over her heart. She looked down at it briefly. Yesterday, Derek had treated a badge like permission to decide who belonged and who did not. Maya saw it differently. To her, Rank was not protection from accountability. It was a promise to carry more of it. Deputy Chief Robert Hayes stepped to the front of the room. "You all know this introduction is happening under unusual circumstances," he said. "But maybe that makes it more important." Then he turned toward the doorway. "Captain Reynolds." Maya entered. The room grew quiet. Some officers had witnessed her in handcuffs less than 24 hours earlier. Others had only heard pieces of the story. Maya did not mention Derek's name. She did not describe herself as a victim. She did not ask for sympathy. "Yesterday taught me something important about this department," she began. "Not because one officer made decisions that are now being reviewed, but because several people saw moments that made them uncomfortable, and too many believed discomfort was not enough reason to speak." Laura lowered her eyes. Ethan sat straighter. Maya continued, "We cannot build trust by demanding it. We earn it one contact at a time, one report at a time, one decision at a time." Her voice stayed even. "And if someone has to know my rank before they treat me with dignity, then we have already failed." No one moved. The resident on the sidewalk does not owe us status. The driver at a traffic stop does not need connections. The teenager asking why they were stopped does not need an important last name. Fairness cannot depend on who a person turns out to be. Hayes watched her carefully. This was not the speech of someone enjoying a victory. It was the speech of someone setting a standard. Maya looked around the room at the officers she would now lead. A badge does not make us more important than the people we serve. It makes us more accountable to them. Later that afternoon, she returned alone to the parking garage. Her dark gray sedan was still in the same space. The security camera remained above the entrance, silent and ordinary. Maya opened the driver's door, placed her bag on the passenger seat, and paused. Yesterday, Derek had looked at her and believed her skin told him enough to decide who she was. He had been wrong about her position, but that was never the deepest mistake. The deeper mistake was believing that her position should have mattered at all. Maya closed the door and looked back toward the station. Justice had not arrived because she carried a higher rank. Justice had arrived because truth had finally been preserved long enough for people to face it. Derek had worn his badge like permission. Maya would wear hers like a promise.